Welcome to Juice Podcast. I'm Gwen Douglas.
And I'm Emily Harmon.
Today's episode we're doing
Austrian wine, or a selection of wines from Austria.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So we've got a couple of whites and a red.
I think there's one that you could maybe question whether it's white or not.
Yeah, okay, right.
Somewhere between white and orange.
A pretty colour.
Yeah.
I think we're going to start with that one, right?
Yeah. But I think maybe before we get into tasting, I'll pour you some whilst we have a bit of a chat. But maybe we can talk a little bit about what we know about Austrian wine, what's interesting, what are names of grape varieties, regions that people may or may not be familiar with.
Right. So I date an Austrian. So I think once I met him, it was an introduction to Austrian wines. Because I would say that for me, a lot of grape varieties from Austria I probably wasn't very familiar with until we met.
Yeah.
So especially Grüner, since every Austrian I meet loves a bit of Grüner.
Yes.
It's hard to pry it away from them, actually.
Yeah. Because living in Berlin as well, there's a bit more access to Austrian wines here than at least there was before in the UK.
Absolutely.
I don't know what it was like in North America.
Travel around a bit too now. Scandinavia likes Austrian wines.
But that's really, I think, the Austrian thing's really taken off in the last sort of 5 years.
Okay.
But I know a UK importer called Clark Foister, and they were sort of the first people to really import Austrian wine seriously. And I want to say that was around 15 years ago they sort of started doing that, so it was relatively a lot of the stuff, I think, because there were the wines from Austria weren't ever super cheap, it's quite high quality overall, absolutely, compared to other countries, that a lot of the stuff stayed in the domestic market for a long time. One of the biggest wine scandals involved Austrian wines.
Right, so they were adding, what were they adding?
So in 85 there was a huge wine scandal. I think we talked about this on our Riesling episode, actually.
Yeah, I feel like we've talked about a couple of scandals.
So diethylene glycol was being added to wine to make the wines appear sweeter and more full-bodied, in the style of late harvest wines, which is why I think it was many of these were Austrian wines that were being exported to Germany. That's the reason why we started seeing this movement in Austria towards dry wines after that, because they
just didn't trust the sweet wines anymore, maybe.
Well, I think they wanted to build the confidence back in people, so they sort of switched back to dry style. So that sort of dictated a little bit about what happened.
Man, the 80s were just a bad time for everything. We're just not doing any.
Not music.
I mean, all right, well, that could be debated. If I have to hear 99 Red Balloons one more time in my life, stab myself.
You're living in the wrong city if you don't like the 80s.
Well, I did work in 80s night at a nightclub for 10 years.
I was going to say, Berlin is stuck in the 80s in so many ways.
It is perpetually like New York in the 80s. But
denim on denim on every corner.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway, so just going a little bit into sort of Austrian wines.
We got sidetracked there a bit. But regions, so let's talk about...
I guess the most famous regions, there's Weinviertel, which is just outside of Vienna, where you can see the vineyards from the city of Vienna, which is pretty amazing. I don't know many places in the world where you can see vines from the centre of town.
I was doing a little reading that Vienna is probably one of the cities that's most at home with vineyards, with vines being grown up touching tram lines.
Yeah.
So there's amazing, which is pretty cool.
Yeah,
they still produce wines.
Yeah, that's the most sort of northern part, and then as you sort of go further down, the Danube River plays quite an important role for quite a few regions. One being obviously Wachau, which is probably the most famous white wine region in Austria historically, for producing quite rich, intense, sometimes really full-bodied white wines. Actually, with Riesling and Grüner. Very ripe,
usually
steep
happy
slopes.
If I see Wachau, that's where I grab one of those.
Yeah, and it's quite interesting. It's kind of the closest thing Austria has to the Mosel in a way, with these sort of steep slopes, and it's very beautiful and picturesque. So that's really interesting. And then going further south, we have Kamptal and then Kremstau, being the next two interesting white wine regions. And I guess after those, the two other places that you're seeing wines from is Steiermark, Styria, and then also Burgenland.
Right, which is on the Hungarian border? Yeah,
on the border of Hungary, and super famous for this very large lake, Neusiedlersee, which is very famous because it sort of freezes over.
I didn't know how to pronounce it. It would have sounded like Noodle Sea if I tried to say it.
And one of And one of our wines actually comes from there, which is interesting. But the lake's really famous for having these mists, so creating the perfect environment for botrytis. So very famous for sweet wines.
Yes, there is a very famous sweet wine from that region.
Yes, and also Blaufränkisch from down there. Yeah.
Cool. So those are a couple of regions. I think in the future we're definitely going to try and
hone in on
some.
Yeah.
But for now, today, we've just sort of picked a selection of pretty different wines, I would say. Also the way they're produced.
Yeah. And
in terms of varieties, Austria, I guess the number one most famous Austrian grape would be Grüner Veltliner.
Yeah, and for white wines, I mean, Austria has a lot more white wine produced than red wine as well, but yeah, mostly Grüner.
And then you meet Austrians and you realise why, because they drink 70% more white wine than they do red wine.
So Grüner, Riesling, obviously, as well for the other white grape. I quite like the Rieslings from Austria, because I find that they're not quite as aromatic as the ones from Germany.
They're really
a little bit more herbal, a little bit more delicate, a little bit usually more dry and a little bit fuller. So for me to introduce people to Riesling, I often start them off with an Austrian Riesling.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, because they don't go, oh, it's sweet.
Yeah,
and you're like,
right.
It's not sweet, but it just smells really aromatic.
Yeah, right. Confuses people.
But the Austrians don't have that in the same way that the German Rieslings do. Red wine, grapes.
Blaufränkisch. What was the other one?
Zweigelt is the other one that's really indigenous. You don't really see these varietals outside of Austria in many places.
Right.
So it's quite interesting.
What's the other one?
Scheurebe. Which we also have, with Scheurebe in Germany as well.
Yeah. Cool. So, that's a little bit of that. If we've missed one that you love, then tell us about it.
Yeah.
And otherwise, we're going to get on to tasting our first wine, which is
called Homok.
Homok. Not sure what that...
Well, that's the name of the vineyard, I think.
Okay.
And
maybe it's a Slovenian name or like a Hungarian name, I mean.
It could be, yeah. So Homok from Alexander Koppitsch. So this is the producer that's actually on Neusiedlersee, so Burgenland.
He always has these really beautiful, super simple...
Well, they're so colourful that you see them, you feel like you're on holiday.
You want to take them on a picnic. Like, that's, I think he makes a lot of very picnicky wines.
Yeah. So, fully natural, I believe. Just going to check the information. But yeah, a single vineyard wine, which is a blend of 3 varietals. It's predominantly Grüner Veltliner, 60%.
The other one was Weißburgunder, and I can't remember the third one.
No, so 60% Grüner, 30% Sauvignon Blanc, and then 10% Weißburgunder.
All right.
Yeah, and it's so the grapes for this one were whole bunches placed in a tank. Grüner ferments in large acacia barrels. The Sauvignon in stainless steel. Weißburgunder in fiberglass tank.
Oh God, so complicated.
Skins remain in contact with the juice for 4 hours and then the bunches are directly pressed and fermented, and then stays in tank for around 9 months. Blended, bottled, unfined, unfiltered, and no sulphur.
All right, so it's got that little cloudy look on it.
That's why I wasn't sure if there was. I didn't read those notes before, but that's why I was like, it looks somewhere between a rosé, an orange, and a white wine.
It's kind of a blush colour because it's not really rosé. There is a hue, kind of a peachy, antique peach.
Interesting nose.
It makes my mouth water. Like I want to drink it.
Yeah, it smells almost like very, very ripe apples and pears.
There is a little like something sort of honey sweet in there. Pink lady apples.
It's quite clean, actually. I'm always scared when I see a wine a little bit. Well, you never know if the little mouse is going to come out and show itself, but it hasn't. Rodent-free zone here.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the words to describe it because it's definitely something I could see myself sitting in the grass and drinking.
It's quite simple. Like I don't think it's
really
super. I think compared to the other 2 wines that we've got. I would say this is the lightest. It's only 11% alcohol, so great going into summer. Yeah. This is great for like when people arrive for a barbecue.
Yeah, totally. Well, when I also think about what they eat in this region too, and they have these like sort of charcuterie afternoon plates,
and probably fish from the lake as well.
Just like easy snacky stuff that you eat with bread. This would be fine with.
Obviously, the Sauvignon gives it this like citrusy, almost grapefruity freshness to it, and also with the Weißburgunder, I think because they're all It's nice because they're sort of gentle aromatics, but they're not too extreme because the proportion of Grüner.
And it's still nice and dry.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, this is a wine that I don't necessarily need food with.
No, I think you could just drink it by itself.
Yeah. What I would eat with this, just some, like you say, maybe just really
snacks.
Simple stuff. Yeah. Just packet of crisps.
Imagine just like a really nice, like, white bread with like a good crust on it. Just bread and butter. Happy as a clam. Just something so you don't get too drunk too fast because you'd probably drink it too quickly.
I wonder how much quicker you get drunk on wines that are like an extra 3% alcohol. I wonder what the actual... I wonder what the equation is. Yeah.
We'll could do an experiment.
You drink you drink like 9... One of us will drink like 9% alcohol ones. The other one will drink like 16% Shiraz. And we'll see who gets the most drunk.
Unless we will have volunteers that want to do it with us.
We need a set of identical twins to try that out on.
So if you're an identical twin and you fancy like being our test subjects, see how quickly you get drunk.
On a 9% wine versus a 16% wine.
Well, I guess it depends how delicious it is.
Yeah. Well, we'd have to give them like, you have to drink X amount within this time.
Yeah. Oh my god, imagine. It'd be like that drunk history.
God.
On YouTube.
Yeah.
How quickly, without sulphur, whether it develops a bit in the bottle. Because sometimes I do find that when something has no sulphur at all, sometimes it's one that you have to drink quickly. So that that's what I was a little bit nervous about with this colour. It's nice, it's peachy, but there's a slight dull element to it. Yes, that's why I said antique peach. I did say antique peach because it does have that dusty. It's not like a bright, lively peach.
Yeah, and sometimes with these zero sulphur wines, not always,
right.
But sometimes I've had some bottles of particular producers, which I won't name and shame now, but like when they're open, within sort of like 20 to 30 minutes, they start going like greeny brown.
Oh yeah, there are a couple of bottles that I actually really do like, but they have a 30 minutes that you have to drink them.
30 minutes until it turns to pond.
Yeah. So you better have 5 friends because everyone gets one glass. It's delicious. It's like. So I remember seeing one of these particular wines on a wine list at a wine bar by the glass, and I was like, "What the actual fuck are you?"
I guess if you're selling a lot, actually, maybe you're going through it quite quickly. But I have had a few
not quick enough. I think when you've got a 30-minute shelf life from opening a bottle, I don't think you're going to smack. Come on.
Enough. Yeah, that's true.
It would have to be like a special on the glass, but I was like terrified, and I saw the guy next to me ordering it, and he got something that was starting.
I wonder as well with the Corvin. Maybe then that's another opportunity for Corvin to play for these like zero sulphur wines. Maybe that's also something that people should be Corvin rather than older wines.
That's what I was thinking, because this place doesn't do that, but I think that would be great for those kind of wines that need to be like taken a bit more care of.
I mean, it's very easy to drink.
Yeah, super easy. Buy myself a couple bottles.
Grapefruit, fruity, almost rhubarby.
And this is brunch also. Like,
yeah, this is a good.
Brunch,
actually, you're right. This is a good brunch wine, actually,
because it's not really too winey.
Yeah,
it doesn't give you like.
Or the end of the night when you just need to like
something to.
Everybody laughs at me because we'll have a lot to drink, and then I'll be like, "Let's drink Pet Nat now," and they're like, "But
I know,"
why?" And
too.
I'm like, "Yeah, but it wakes you back up."
Yeah, Lucas gets mad at me because at the end of the night I always like, one more bottle, and I always suggest a Pet Nat, and he always goes, "I don't want to drink bubbles now," but it's like it's not the same.
Yeah, that's because he doesn't like bubbles, which is completely inexcusable.
It's really annoying.
For me, it's like once you go, you can have Pet Nat, and it's a way to restart. So if you want, it doesn't even need to be the last one. It's like it's half time then.
Yeah, it's half time. Oh my god, Pet Nats for half time.
Yeah,
now that's
half-time
a hashtag. Yeah. Half-time Pet Nats.
That's a t-shirt, isn't it? That would be a great image of people like half-time. All these like football players like drinking Pet Nat from the bottle.
Amazing.
And like it foaming out of their mouths. Righty, bottoms up then. Mm-hmm. Gwen has an empty glass.
Yeah, because it's fucking
Emily
delicious.
has half a glass of wine. She's secretly been necking it as usual.
It's good. I like it. Otherwise I'd be like tossing it in the flowers.
Oh. I didn't
more than a mouthful there.
Yeah, that was quite the shot of just put that. I'm worried about it going bad.
I was gonna say, put that lid on.
So we're gonna go a little bit unconventional for some people.
So we're going for the red next.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, can I?
Fuck the rules.
Another hashtag.
Yeah. Who says you have to do things in an order anyway?
That's another t-shirt. Fuck the rules and a picture of Gwen drinking Gewürztraminer.
Out of the bottle. Like at Christmas.
I like when you sent me the list of wines today. You snuck a Gewürztraminer in there. I was like, what do you think that? What episode's that?
Well, it's a really good... Yeah, I'm excited about that one. Tastes really like rose
smells
petals.
great.
I'm excited.
So the next wine, Gwen, would you like to introduce the wine that you bought?
So this is one we drink quite a lot at home.
Yeah.
Kalkstein Blaufränkisch by Claus Preisinger.
What vintage?
It is 2017, 12.5%.
Look, it smells great.
Yeah, this is a definite... my boyfriend works at the Austrian embassy. So this is something they drink there. It's something we like at home. Because I travel with an Austrian, wherever we go, people offer it to us, and we're like, we have so many bottles at home. On holidays, sometimes we like to try other things. But Preisinger is always a good choice, I think.
I absolutely adore Klaus's wines. I haven't actually had one yet that I've disliked. I really like that they have precision, they have freshness, and they have purity to them across the range from entry up until the top wines. I really, really think they're quite really, really good wines. You see the varietal, you see the place, but also they're not too conservative either.
Yeah, exactly. It's like that nice balance between like doing things with some sort of traditional and clean, but then also having a little fun and
totally
pushing the right boundaries where they need to be pushed.
I was trying to have a little look to see if I could find out a little bit of extra information on it, but it is unfined and unfiltered, and there is some sulfur added. I'm assuming just a bottling, but the grapes, it says biodynamic organic / equivalent, so he's not adding any chemicals at any point.
I mean, the colour of this is a very goth colour. It's very
goth.
And yeah, because it's really like...
It is.
I mean, it is...
It could be it could be the shade of lipstick.
Yeah, it's really beautiful colour, but not see-through.
It's almost, it's like purpley, but like red at the same time.
Yeah, it's very nice.
On his website, I've got the 2016 sheet up, not for the 17, which we've got now, but I don't imagine they'll be super different in terms of production. But it says that usually they're making selection in the vineyard as well, everything's hand-picked. Then they resort the fruit, or at least they did for the 16 in the winery as well, and it just says old school winemaking, natural fermentation and stainless steel, 6 months in used big barrels on the lees.
Yeah, I think you can... I mean, we'll get to that, but I think, for me, the nose is not huge.
And Kalkstein, obviously, is chalk and limestone. Yeah. For me, Blaufränkisch, for people that haven't tried Blaufränkisch before, how do they find it?
Yeah,
how would you describe it? For me, I find it somewhere between 3 different varietals. So it's somewhere like Pinot Noir, Mencia, and Syrah.
Okay. Interesting.
Because it's not as light as Pinot, even though the alcohol percentage is light. In terms of, it's not, and it hasn't got this sort of fruitiness that you see in Pinot.
Right.
But it has this spicy, herbal quality, almost sappy quality that you see a bit in Syrah and also in Mencia. And this sort of darker fruit profile. But quite mineral, and I think it's it's a lovely grape because it can be super elegant, but it can also be more robust depending how it's made.
Because I would say, like, for me, the smell... There's a little bit of fruit, but it's quite faint, and it would be more like blackberry.
Yeah,
like
brambly, totally.
Total bramble, sweet, really ripe bramble.
Yeah, there's a saltiness, there's a spiciness to it, there's this wild forest smell to it. There's a little bit of like this earthy, slightly leathery...
It's very nice. It's a really sexy smell, I have to say. Because I think it's a little understated. It's not like in your face.
And there's a touch of like this sort of violet-y floral lift on it.
Yeah.
And of course, there's a touch of cloudiness because it is unfiltered, but I still feel like it's not to the point, like with the Koppitsch, like for some people that will freak them the hell out.
This would not put you off at all, because someone would pour you this in a restaurant. I don't think you would notice.
Oh, very nice wine.
Yeah, really delicious.
I want to eat so much stuff with this.
Because I think you could do this at every point in a meal.
Fatty pork cheek.
You could even have it early in the meal with cheese. I think it's... I mean, I could drink this in the afternoon happily, a little bit chilled.
With some goat's cheese, it'd be quite nice. It'd be really nice with some goat's cheese.
Yeah, because it's got that sort of herbally... Yeah, I think you could have it with, like, bigger dishes,
do you know,
autumn dishes.
Autumn dishes. I'm thinking like cassoulet or stews, things with bay leaf inside, and
with
quite
the herbal.
And yeah. Well, the food at the Tegel Business Lounge. You've been in there? It's awful.
No.
Oh my god! So sometimes I get...
I mean, I didn't know Tegel even had a business.
There's a British Airways lounge at Tegel.
I imagine it would be quite sad.
It is everything you expect it to be, except that it's not Schönefeld. And
it probably looks like an NHS hospital, like, held together with duct
tape.
tape.
No, because the space itself is cool, but the furniture is, like, the cheapest Holiday Inn furniture you've ever seen that's been there.
Okay.
Like, there is a bit where there's, like, an old water fountain that's, like, made out, like, that looks like it would be outside in a garden. It's in the middle of the lounge, but it's not being used.
Like, someone brought it from home. They were like, I was going to throw this out. Should we use it? Someone was like, oh, Bob, what are you going to do with that fountain? You're going to throw it away?
No, but it's like, it's walled, so someone's built a little wall around it and stuff, and it kind of looks almost like there's this kind of, like, amateur Japanesey. It's really, I mean, it's awful. So that's there, like, and then you've got this sort of counter, and as you walk in, there's like little bowls of mini Haribo packs that you can get, and I'm like,
you know what? It makes me think like someone took a train ride and like stole all the mini packets of Haribo they give you on the DB, and then just like put them in the business lounge.
Well, they probably did, because then they have like hard-boiled sweets, which I always take a few because I'm like, oh, that would be helpful with my flight.
I love grandma sweets.
And so I go into the bit, like, every time I go in there, I always hope there's going to be something new, but there never is.
No, never.
So I was really disappointed last time because I went for breakfast. So there's no hot option at breakfast. I mean,
I feel like the airports in Berlin, there's very little option to begin with. You're like, you can have an apple or a banana.
No, Tegel's got better. There's a good cafe there now. There's a good cafe by the A gates, which is like
before
quite
you
nice.
go in.
Before you go in,
they do a good bagel there.
Yeah, then there's just like a cart inside. Once you're inside,
like you always, it's that gamble where you're like, do I eat before I go through the gate or do I eat after? And I'm going to tell everyone right now, if you're at any airport in Germany, eat before you go through security.
Yeah, take BYO.
You are going to just bring your own food, because you are going to be horribly disappointed.
And there's a few tricks as well. There's a few tricks about flying from Tegel. So one is that when you go through this terminal like C, which is not really even its own terminal, it's just Area C essentially.
It's like warehouses.
The porter cabin element of Tegel.
Oh God!
When you go through and there's like the duty free thing, they sell cartons of water for half a litre, and they're €1.
I always get those.
I always do that because if you buy from the vending machine, it's €3.50. Yeah. So you save yourself €2.50.
And you're being kinder on the environment, slightly.
Oh, because it's plastic coated, so I don't know if it's recyclable.
That's why I said slightly.
Okay.
So like maybe it'll take the cardboard 100 years to dissolve because it'll take that long for an animal to chew.
But it will dissolve quicker than the plastic.
Slightly.
Yeah. And then the other one is that there are around gates A12 and A13. There's a good Italian cafe that sells lovely croissants and little fruit salads and stuff. And it's actually good.
I usually do the Asian one where they do pho, but I always get this like glass noodle salad.
Where's that?
That's my go-to. Whenever I've flown to the UK, when I fly to Gatwick.
Which airline?
EasyJet.
Oh, that means you're in C.
Yeah, not as cool as...
you've got to get the frequent fly points. London City, that's the best route in the world. Tegel to London City.
I try not to go
too
north. I stay real south when I go to the UK.
I mean, Gatwick Airport is basically where I am from, so I should be flying there. Every time I fly there, every time anyone tells me there, I'm like, I'm from Gatwick Airport. It's like 4 miles away.
You're like Horley. You know,
I've been on that.
I've said it once. I'll say it a million times. My favourite hotel in the world is at Horley, Gatwick Airport, Block Hotel. Block
Hotel. We would like to come and stay there.
We're going to do a weekend at Block Hotel. One day.
We're just going to fly from Tegel to Gatwick to stay at the Block and then fly back.
100%. I mean, it's on my bucket list of ridiculous things to do.
We basically wouldn't have left Germany except...
Yeah. I'm just going to like eat snacks from WH Smith and from Marks and Sparks. It's going to be good.
Anyway, so Tegel business, just going back on this little business class lounge, because I know everybody's going to be itching to want to know what's in there.
The other hacks. Okay.
So you go in and you look in the fridge and you're like, all right, there's like 500 millilitre beers in the fridge that you can take and drink.
It's going to some German nan's house, so you're like, what have you got in the fridge?
It's almost, it's like somewhere between a German nan's house and a Späti, where you just go in so you can get the huge beers.
I want, next time you're there, I want you to photograph the people that are drinking those beers, because that is the last thing that I would drink before taking a flight, because I have to pee all the time. So if I'm flying, the last thing I'm doing is going to drink a litre of beer.
They're drinking it in and out of the lounge. It doesn't matter if it's in the lounge or not. And then last time I was there, I went, well, it wasn't the last time, but the time before I was there in the afternoon. So the only hot option is like, you know those like tinned sausages, like Wiener sausages. So
Party
they're
sausages.
in like this, what looks like a drinks blender sort of thing. And I look at it.
I mean, none of that you've said so far sounds appealing.
But there's steam coming up from the bottom. I look at it and I'm like, what's that all about? Because I saw a sign saying no meat. And I'm like, what? So there's like vegetarian side and non-vegetarian side, but they're essentially being steamed in the same way. So I'm like, if you don't eat meat, you're still getting like
hot
meat
dog
steam. Like that's your only option.
I mean,
like
I'm from a place that loves a steamed sausage. Like Montreal loves a steamed.
Don't get me wrong, but like
steamed
I also
bread and steamed sausage.
the last thing you want to be doing as a single female in an airport lounge is like,
mowing down on a steamed sausage
with all the businessmen having a look at you whilst you're eating the sausage.
Because most of the time when you're in those spaces, the ratio of men to women is
99 to 1.
Yeah. It's like one time when I moved from Amsterdam back to the UK, my girlfriend and I we had to take the van on the ferry, and of course the ferry that we took, apparently our truck was a tiny bit too big, so we had to pay extra to be like a real trucker. But then you get like a free meal in the truckers lounge. We're like, fuck it, we're gonna eat in the truckers lounge. I think these men had never seen women before, because they were taking pictures of my friend eating petit four with these like tiny cakes, and they were like, oh, so sexy, look at that woman eating a cake.
God,
it was so weird. We asked the guy
maybe
for some
they had
wine.
food fetishes.
I think the guy had to he climbed into that fridge to try and find like one bottle of white or rosé that was buried in the back. Just beer and whiskey. I mean, truckers lounge.
Yeah,
it was fun.
I'd quite like to go to a truckers lounge. Yeah,
I
reckon
actually really
it'd be quite fun.
I mean, we had a lot of stares because we were all like, oh, we're dressed up, we're going to go to the casino later. Casino on the ferry. So good. Anyway, we've gone way off track.
Yeah, we have.
Because we're just enjoying this Preisinger wine.
We are.
It's really delicious.
Yeah, I mean, if this happened to appear, British Airways, please put this wine into the BA lounge so there's at least one thing
that you can have.
Yeah, because actually the only thing I have when I go there is sometimes I make myself a Negroni.
I love that it's all like self-serve. Always in business lounges, you're like just a bunch of random bottles. That's why it's really like going to your nan's house.
I know. At least in London, the vermouth is fresh because people are using it. So I'm always making a martini in London. But on this occasion, I made myself a Negroni, and the only thing I could find to eat was because I heard somebody else say that they'd had it. This businessman an English guy say to his colleague, he said, I just had some Philadelphia on a Rivita with some Tabasco on top, and it was really
delicious.
Good. And I was like, oh man, I've just eaten one without Tabasco, so I went back and I put the Tabasco on. I was
that's
like,
a good idea.
This is like,
I mean, Philadelphia on anything. But I'm a big fan. Philadelphia on a cracker of any kind.
But when that's the highlight of your lounge,
it's also very 1970s. That was one of my mother's favorite hors d'oeuvres: Philadelphia cream cheese on a Ritz cracker with half an olive. With the little the green olives with the pimento in the middle. Like, I could eat 1,000 of those. Delicious.
I've never done that, but I think I could see that.
Good.
I quite like very ripe tomatoes with the salt on and olive oil drizzled over the top.
All of those. I used to do 1970s parties at home when I lived in Canada.
Well, the 1970s party will soon be coming to Juice Podcast.
Yes.
Hold on to your seats, people. This is going to be a ride. Last one today, one out of the Emily Harmon collection. So I bought this bottle, I think, around 5 years ago, maybe 4.5. Schloss, Gobelsburg, Grüner Veltliner from the Esterlager. Esterlager is like Premier Cru. Yeah. The vineyard's called Renner, and it's the 2012.
So this moment you opened it earlier, so I already had a little sneak preview. But I have to say that it wasn't for me, maybe because I haven't had so many aged Grüners. But maybe for me, immediately it was not what I imagine a Grüner to be.
See, I smell this and I immediately think of Grüner. But
tell me why, because
I actually think it's interesting because Grüner is a great variety that sits somewhere a little bit in between Riesling and Chardonnay for me.
Okay, that's interesting.
And it's often
like that.
Yeah, and more often it's compared to Riesling, and less often it's compared to Chardonnay. And I think this is
funny
today.
For maybe just my experience with Grüner, I wouldn't have put it near either of them.
But think about unoaked Chardonnay.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Exactly. No, you're totally right.
But this one, yeah, I mean, this is quite obviously it's 7 years old, or almost 7 years old, and it has been made in a way where it's quite an intense wine. And also the style from Gobelsburg I think they benefit from aging. Gobelsburg is produced, like, it's an old Schloss, like it's an old castle, but it was an old monastery. So wine's been produced there for centuries. So I've tried the wines for a lot of time over the years.
Maybe I'm wondering, like, because I think when you're taught, varietals and this one tastes like XYZ, I think white pepper is always something that's thrown out.
I see the pepper is here, though.
Yeah, see, but maybe that's why I'm struggling. White pepper is maybe something that I don't have that often, I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
But I see the pepperiness here, but I do see that you, like...
That it's a struggle to get there, I think, for me.
The nose, though, for me, is Austria, and it's Grüner, but I think if you didn't pick that, like, there are very few other things that it would lead you towards. Like, I think if you like things like the Lasula that we had a few weeks ago, this is definitely a wine that's a bit like Lasula, where it's got these.
Sniffly today, so maybe that's what it is.
But it's it's a lot more exotic maybe than other Grüners that maybe you've had before. Maybe that's
what it is.
And it's full bodied.
It's really full bodied. It's
and
so
crazy
much
fruity, but like for me, it's just like Grüner on steroids because everything's intense. So like this very ripe fruit, obviously you see like the pear fruit there, but it's going almost exotic. Quince, 100%. You're also seeing these sort of leesy characteristics, biscuity, so savoury.
Yes. I mean, it's really delicious. This is really very, very good.
Spicy. For me, it's this is where I still see this line between Chardonnay and Riesling. So if you try like old Alsatian Riesling, it has this slightly exotic note that you're seeing here,
totally.
And this spiciness.
Yeah.
But then on the palate, like you have this texture and this weight that you wouldn't necessarily see in Riesling, but you'd probably see in Chardonnay.
I would probably drink this with what exactly I would drink with things from Alsace. I probably like cheese and jams,
meat,
chicken. Also some really nice chicken.
I think of like hearty dishes.
Yeah, but it can handle some fat. Because I think, like, from that region, you say chicken, you think, like, light. But actually, I'm thinking, like, lots of butter. You could do things that are much heavier. It could stand up to super fruity dishes or super kind of anything. Maybe not a steak, but I think it could do close to it.
No, but if you were eating steak and you wanted a white wine, this would be one of them.
Totally.
I mean, it's 13.5% alcohol, but it is very intense and it is very rich. And it's got this savoury, leesy quality, but this intense exotic fruit as well.
Because when we talked about Grüner, it's not what I was expecting. I was expecting what I usually imagine from a
peaches
Grüner.
And pears. Pears and pepper.
And even the colour for me, because when I think about like the classic glass for Grüner with the green stem.
I mean, we can get the nail polish out. Get the green on the stem if that.
But I think it's because even the colour is really buttery, and I mean, I love white burgundies. So this is something I would probably drink right before a bigger burgundy. Yeah. Like if I were moving up, I'd do this and then
because it's maybe less oaky than a white burgundy.
But I think this would be like the perfect right before going to your big expensive Merceau that you'd do one of these. And
if I had to choose like for white wines, I love Grüner and I have for a long time because I find it super versatile.
Yeah.
Because when you compare it to Riesling, it's got slightly less acidity than Riesling. Like it's still got good acidity, but slightly lower. In general, it has more body, and it's always made dry as well. So
it's a bit more drinky.
I actually think for a lot of people, Grüner is far more accessible than Riesling.
If the world knew more about Grüner, there'd be a lot more Grüner being drank. Because I think it's a really easy, delicious. It can be made super clean. Austrians love a spritz, so they love to mix it with soda.
Sometimes it can be very mundane. Like, let's not get it wrong. The cheaper end, like we see some that are just sort of a little bit quaffable.
But you can use those too, and they're drinkable too in their own way. You mix them with a little soda water, and you have no hangover at the end of your afternoon session. But I think it's a really nice, versatile white that I think if it was sold more readily around the world, it would be drunk a whole lot more.
Yeah, which it should be.
Yeah.
Just more people need to get. And also, I mean, this is just going back to it. It's like it's not the most expensive Austrian wines are not that expensive if you compare them to, say, France.
Yeah, right.
But there's nothing really at entry level in Austria. It doesn't really exist. And when I say entry level, like your house wine, it's quite hard to find like house wine. Maybe a Zweigelt you can find, but particularly for whites and particularly for Grüner, like it sort of starts at a little bit above entry level. They have quite high quality, and also where they fit price wise is not always cheap. But I think if you find a good producer and you
buy a
find
case,
them.
get yourself the discount.
Yeah. But you can find something sort of mid-priced, really good, and this will appeal. If you had a dinner party, you pop this on the table, everybody would like it.
This is definitely like Grüner, Veltliner is something that whenever I go wine shopping, especially now that we're heading into the summer season, something that I buy by the case. I buy one that's a nice middle range, because you know that no matter who comes over, someone is going to drink it. No one's going to be offended. It's going to be delicious. Goes with pretty much everything. I mean, I think it's a really easy grape to pair with things.
I agree.
Because middle range can be a little nondescript sometimes. So it makes it...
Do you know what I think of? I think about what I'm tasting now, and I think like if I wanted to have the ultimate comfort food pairing, I would have ham hock with mashed potato and this.
Yes. Because actually it's sort of fatty but light at the same time. That's actually a very interesting pairing. I like that.
I mean, that was a bit of an intro into Austrian wine.
I think we should definitely delve a bit. Like later delve into some regions a bit more heavy.
I agree with you. We should totally like explore the varietals in a bit more detail, the regions and the styles. Yeah. So much to learn about.
And I think there are a couple of other countries also that we will explore in this way. Yes. Because I think there are some places that make some really good wines that people should be definitely drinking more of. Yes. So if you have some favourites that you think, like, this is a country that definitely needs some attention, we'd love to hear from you. So you can contact us on Instagram at juice.podcast.
On Twitter at juice_podcast.
You can find our website at juice.show, where you can pick up a very fancy tote bag for yourself, your mum, your friends, for whoever. And you can message us anywhere. But otherwise, we'll see you next week. I'm Gwen Douglas.
I'm Emily Harmon.
Cheers.
Cheers.